The day after the UA entrance exam, Izuku got out of bed, still sleepy, and walked to the bathroom to relieve himself and wash his face. He returned to his room and started getting dressed for school. There was still some time before classes ended and he could attend UA. He went down to the dining room, where Inko was waiting for him at the table with his breakfast already ready. After breakfast with his mother, Izuku grabbed his backpack and headed out to school. While he stood waiting in a corner for the light to change, he raised his hand to her confused gaze. How strange, she's not here anymore. Time skip, 1 month. 2 weeks ago, Izuku received a letter from UA informing him that he had passed the practical exam, scoring 83 villain points and 60 rescue points, for a total of 143 points. He was also informed via hologram video that he had entered the hero class in Class 1A. A couple of days later, he received his official uniform and some other things he needed to do, like submitting the specifications for his hero suit. Izuku is currently walking through the halls of UA looking for his classroom, but the labyrinthine corridors of the enormous facility make his task difficult. After searching for about 10 minutes, he finally finds the door that had 1A written on it. The green-haired boy's first thought about the door is that it was too big, probably for students with mutant enlargement quirks who couldn't deactivate it. "Oh, is that you, Midoriya? I'm glad you were able to pass the exam too." A female voice brought the green-haired boy out of his thoughts. Turning around, he recognized Melissa walking towards him with a slight smile. "Shield? It's great that you passed too." He turned completely around to greet her. "Shield? Please call me Melissa, I'm not used to being called by my last name." "Okay, Melissa," Izuku nodded. "Crazy, huh? Getting into UA," the blonde commented, looking at the enormous door. "That's right, I'm nervous about what awaits us inside." "Right, I can't hold back my excitement either. I've always wanted to get into UA and now I'm here." Izuku was about to continue speaking, but was interrupted when someone else spoke. "It's you, the people who saved me." Izuku and Melissa turned around and saw a girl with brown hair and slightly flushed cheeks walk towards them. "You're the girl who got trapped in the rubble, right?" Izuku said, recognizing her. "That's right, Uraka Ochako calls me. I appreciate you saving my life." The brown-haired girl bowed in gratitude. "It's okay, you don't have to." Melissa was interrupted when someone else spoke. "If you came here to make friends, then get lost." The three teens looked down and saw a giant yellow caterpillar with a bum-like face on the ground. "Come in," ordered the caterpillar man, emerging from his cocoon. The three teens obediently entered the classroom and each sat in the last free seats, completely ignoring the blue-haired girl who was scolding Bakugo. The man stood in the doorway, carrying his cocoon on his shoulder. When everyone realized his presence they quickly sat down. "It took you 4 seconds to shut up, that's not rational. In the heroic world 1 second can cost you your life or that of a civilian in danger," he said, walking to the front of everyone. "My name is Shota Aizawa, I will be your homeroom teacher for this year." He took out what appeared to be a sports uniform from his cocoon. "Put this on and go out to the courtyard. Don't take long." He shook his cocoon and several uniforms in transparent bags with names came out from inside. How was it in there with all that? Izuku wondered. When the teacher left, it took everyone a few seconds to react. They stood up and each grabbed the bag that had their name on it. Then they left the classroom and found the locker room. When they finished, they headed to where the teacher had indicated, who was waiting for them right there. "You took too long. You need to learn to control your timing and be quick," he sighed tiredly. "It doesn't matter anymore. Now you will conduct a series of tests using your quirks as you please." Everyone was surprised to hear their teacher. "What about the initiation and orientation event?" Uraka asked, confused. "You only have 3 years to become competent heroes. You don't have time to waste on petty activities. Teachers have free will in how we teach our classes. That's how UA works," he replied with a serious look that made the students shudder. "You've all already taken physical exams that test your physical abilities, but you've done them without using your quirks. The state continues to carry out tests that don't take your quirks into account just to encourage a certain sense of equality. That's not rational." He walked over to a box full of white balls and picked one up. "Midoriya, you came in first place on the practical exam. What was your school ball throwing record?" 71 meters, the green-haired boy replied. "Now stand in that circle and try it." He threw the ball to Izuku and pointed to the white circle. "You can use your quirk and do whatever you want as long as you don't leave the circle." Izuku walked to the indicated spot and got ready to throw. Pads grew on his fingertips and the ball momentarily glowed green. The veins in his arm popped out as he activated his super strength and his grip on the ball tightened. He threw his arm forward and released the ball at the last second, sending it hurtling through the sky. Everyone thought it would fall after a few seconds, but time passed and nothing happened. A minute later, the tech phone Izuku had rang. "Infinity," he said, showing the screen with the infinity symbol to the entire class, surprising them. "What? Infinity?" said a blond man with a lightning bolt-like mark in his hair. "Wow, bro, that's crazy, it didn't look like he threw it that hard," commented a boy with black hair and a plain face. "That's a manly score," cheered a spiky redhead. "We get to use our quirks. This will be fun," said a girl with a completely pink body. "Fun? You think this is fun? Okay, let's make it fun." The entire class fell silent when they heard Izuku speak. "The last place in the tests will be classified as having no potential and will be expelled." A look of disbelief appeared on the students' faces. Their complaints were immediate when they understood what Izuku had said. "Are you going to expel the last place finisher on the first day? Even if it wasn't the first day, it would be unfair," Uraka complained. "Fair? Natural disasters, heartless villains, unpredictable calamities. The world is full of injustice, it's a hero's job to face them and emerge victorious. If you were thinking of hanging out with your friends after school, too bad. UA will only give you one more difficulty to overcome. Go all out." With that, Izuku began the physical tests. 50-meter race. The blue-haired boy and a frog girl stood at the starting line. Ready. Out. The blue-haired boy's leg motors carried him across the racetrack in just 3.04 seconds. The frog girl arrived in 5.58 seconds. Next. Uraka and a blonde boy with a ponytail went to the starting line. Ready. Go. The tail pushed the blonde teenager, sending him across the finish line in 5.4 seconds. Uraka came in shortly after with a time of 7.15 seconds. Seeing that his turn was approaching, Izuku decided to get ready. He walked up to one of his teammates. "Hello, how are you? My name is Midoriya Izuku, nice to meet you." He introduced himself, extending a hand to the tall, blue-haired boy. "Hi, I'm Ida Tenya. Shouldn't you be getting ready to run? Your turn isn't long now." Ida responded to Izuku's greeting with a handshake. Across the group of students, Bakugo looked at what the green-haired boy had done, but he looked away with a snort as he walked toward the starting line. Beside him, Melissa was already ready to race. Ready. Go. Bakugo used his explosions to propel himself across the racetrack and over the finish line, finishing in 4.47 seconds. Melissa focused 5% of her power on her legs and ran across the finish line in 5.03 seconds. Finally, it was Izuku's turn, and he said goodbye to Ida and went to the starting point. In the same way that Uraka did on her turn, he lightened his clothes with his quirk. Next to him stood the boy with two shades of hair, red and white. Engines erupted from Izuku's calves, surprising everyone who saw, but more so Ida. Even the stoic bicolor showed a slightly surprised expression until he regained his natural cold expression. Ready. Go. The motors in Izuku's legs roared to life, propelling him like a rocket down the racetrack. At first, Izuku was surprised by the speed and power of the motors, causing him to stumble, but he managed to adjust and stabilize himself, continuing to run. Meanwhile, a wave of ice carried the two-tone racer across the finish line. The two-tone racer finished in 4.38 seconds, and Izuku finished in 4.52 seconds. Grip strength. One by one, they used a machine to measure their grip strength. Most had relatively average weights, between 60 and 80 kilos. But the ones who stood out the most were the redhead at 123 kilos, Melissa at 167 kilos, a guy with thick lips at 159 kilos, and the guy with the tail at 205 kilos. However, none of them compared to the 540 kilos of the boy with several arms, much less the brunette who created a device that weighed a full ton. It was Izuku's turn, and he knew which quirk to use. As he walked, he surreptitiously brushed his hand against one of the arms of the boy who weighed 540. He grabbed the grip machine and activated his new quirk. His height increased while his shoulders broadened and new arms grew from under his armpits. Everyone was amazed by Izuku's new form. His new arms gripped the machine more firmly, and he activated super strength. Everyone's mouths dropped as the machine cracked and broke under the crushing force of Izuku's multiple arms. Even he himself seemed amazed by the sheer strength of his grip. Side jumps. In this test, Izuku couldn't use anything but his own physical ability, as there were no other quirks that could help him. He considered using the dwarf's quirk with balls on his head, but discarded it due to the height difference. Long jump. Using zero gravity, as Uraka heard her call her Quirk while talking to the purple-haired girl, she floated like a balloon over the track. Ball throw. Since Izuku had already performed this test, he didn't have to do it again, so he just stood there to watch the others use their quirks. Bakugo grimaced in anger when his throw only reached 704.6 meters. Uraka used her quirk on the ball and threw it. Like Izuku, she scored infinity, but the difference is that hers took 10 minutes. When it was Melissa's turn, she focused 5% of her quirk on her arm to make the throw, but when she released the ball, it only traveled 47 meters, confusing her. I deactivated her quirk, said Aizawa, getting everyone's attention. The bandages around the homeless-looking teacher were levitating in the air while his eyes glowed an intimidating red. In that moment Izuku realized who it was. Considered the best underground hero for his power and great hand-to-hand fighting skills, in addition to the inhuman use of his super-resistant bandages. The professional hero Eraserhead. Quirk, Erase. Allows him to erase the quirks of those he looks at, but the effect is lost if he blinks. After Aizawa lectured Melissa, and she put on a huge show of strength by breaking her finger, the tests continued. The following tests, such as long-distance running and sit-ups, were relatively easy for him with his super strength quirk, and although he didn't place first in all of them, he remained in the top 3. I don't want to share everyone's score, so I'll show you everything at once, Aizawa said after the tests were over. A hologram appeared on his phone, displaying the scoreboard. Izuku was pleased to see his name in first place, followed by Yayoro Uzumomo and Todoroki Shoto. Beside him, he heard Bakugo babble about how he couldn't possibly have placed fourth behind the other extras. Confident of his spot, he turned his gaze to the last spot. A certain Minoru Mineta was there. The wailing of the dwarf with balls on his head was immediate, and Izuku assumed he was Mineta. The expulsion thing was a lie. I did it so they would use their quirks to their full potential, said Aizawa, leaving his students in shock at being tricked. Shield, go to the infirmary to get treated. Even if the expulsion was a lie, I hope you don't keep using the excuse that you can't control your power. For the rest, the study plan is in the classroom, go and read it. That's all, you can leave. Aizawa turned around and walked off to the side of the building. Everyone went to the locker room to change into their normal uniforms and then to the living room to pick up the document Aizawa told them about. As they were getting ready to leave, the blonde with a black streak in his hair approached Izuku. Hello, my name is Kaminari Denki. He caught Izuku's attention. Hello, I'm Midoriya Izuku. Do you want something? He asked, finishing putting a sheet of paper in his backpack. What is your quirk? The blonde asked directly, making everyone in the room stop what they were doing and pay attention to what Izuku answered. Yes, I want to know too, said the pink-skinned girl. I'm Ashido Mina. I can't deny that your peculiarity intrigues me, said a crow-headed boy. Guys, please calm down, said Ida, raising his voice, asking for something like that is not right. I suggest we all introduce ourselves with our names and peculiarities, so we can get to know each other better. The blue-haired girl's request was taken into consideration by his other classmates. Sounds good to me, said the pink-skinned girl. My name is Ashido Mina, and my quirk is called Acid. I can generate corrosive acid through my skin. I can also control its solubility and viscosity. With Ashido's introduction, the others gained confidence and began to introduce themselves. My name is Kaminari Denki and my quirk is electrification. I can discharge large amounts of electricity from any part of my body, but if I use too much it fries my brain. Asuitsuyu. My quirk is frog. I can do everything a frog can. My name is Kirishima Eijiro. I can harden my skin as strong as stone, making me hard to break. So everyone introduced themselves until it was Izuku's turn. My name is Midoriya Izuku. My quirk is called Perfect Copy. I have the ability to permanently copy the quirks of the people I touch, although currently I have a limit of 4 quirks, but this will increase over time. Everyone was surprised by Izuku's quirk. Dude, that's brutal. Your quirk is very powerful, Kaminari said, surprised. The ability to permanently copy quirks. I've heard of copy quirks, but never anything like that, Yayorozu commented, making a thoughtful expression. Wouldn't that make you the strongest person in the world, being able to copy anyone's quirk? Mineta asked. I don't think so. Even though I can copy quirks, I don't gain the user's control or abilities. It's a new quirk I have to learn to use, Izuku explained. And what quirks did you use during the quirk test? Sero asked. In the 50-meter dash I used Uraka's to lighten my clothes and Ida's to run. In the grip strength I used Shoji's and Death Arm's super strength quirk. In the long jump I simply used Uraka's to float, just like in ball throwing. The rest I only used super strength to improve my performance. Everyone was surprised by what Izuku said. Using multiple quirks to have an advantage in the test seemed unfair to them, but nobody said anything. "Oh right, you're still missing, aren't you?" Ashido said, pointing at Melissa, who had just returned from the infirmary. Well. My name is Melissa Shield. My quirk is called Physical Augmentation. It allows me to enhance my physical abilities, but if I use too much of my power I can hurt myself, she explained, showing her bandaged finger. From his spot, Izuku looked at Melissa, remembering what happened the day after the entrance exam. It turns out that when Izuku checked his quirks, he didn't find Melissa's anywhere, even though he had the free space to copy another quirk. Something like that had never happened to him. Having his body delete it while he slept was something almost impossible. The act of deleting his quirks was something he had to do consciously, it didn't happen by chance. Not being able to find a logical answer, he stopped thinking about it. After all, she would most likely pass the exam and have another chance to copy her quirk at UA. Even if he had to wait 10 years for the power to accumulate, it would be completely worth it to have that power. As expected, Melissa entered UA. But when he tried to copy her quirk during the tests by surreptitiously brushing her hand, nothing happened, the space in her quirk remained empty. He tried again, but the result was the same. A little frustrated, he walked away from her so as not to look weird. Izuku looked away from Melissa when she noticed him. A slight blush spread across his cheeks as he realized he'd been staring directly at a girl for almost a minute. For her part, Melissa giggled lightly at Izuku's reaction. A couple of tables away from them, Ashido noticed the blonde and green-haired man interacting, a sly smile appearing on her face. After that, everyone started to leave. Izuku now walks through the large exit doors of UA. "Hey, wait for me," Melissa said, running after Izuku. "Melissa? What's wrong?" Izuku asked, stopping. "You're going to the station, right? Can I accompany you?" Gasping for air. "Well, it's fine," Izuku agreed, and they both started walking. "The truth is I just arrived in Japan and I'm staying with my uncle. He brought me to the academy, but now he's busy with his new job and can't take me back. And since I don't know anything or anyone I thought I'd ask you for help," explained the blonde without stopping walking. "No problem. It must be confusing to be in an unknown country." "Well, it's not entirely unknown. I came here when I was a child, but I don't remember anything anymore." They both remained silent, not knowing what else to say. "So where do you live?" Izuku asked. "At first I lived in Tokyo with my uncle, but his job made him come to Musatefu, so we moved. I guess it's better this way. It's closer to UA, Melissa replied. "And you?" "I also live in Musatefu, in the north. I live there alone with my mother." "And your father?" Melissa cursed herself for asking, she thought it was probably a sensitive subject. "He works abroad, more precisely in the United States. He sends money to my mother and me, so she doesn't have to work," Izuku replied, dismissively. The awkward silence stretched for a few seconds until Izuku asked, "Your father is David Shield, right?" Izuku's question surprised Melissa. "How did you know?" "Well, the last name Shield is well known and not very common, even among foreigners," she explained. "That's true. My father is David Shield," she confirmed. "I assumed, but from what I understand, David Shield's only daughter doesn't have a quirk." Izuku gave a curious look when Melissa shuddered and stopped walking. He stopped and turned around so he was face to face with Melissa. "It's not a well-known piece of information, but it exists on the internet." Melissa took a deep breath and answered, "I was considered quirkless until a year ago, when my power finally awakened. Doctors believe it was because my body couldn't withstand the backlash. Even now my body can withstand my full power." She recounted the lie she had prepared with her father in All Might. "It must have been a very difficult childhood." "What do you mean?" the blonde questioned. Izuku turned and started walking, followed by Melissa. "Like you, although not as long, my quirk took a while to fully manifest. My quirk is an accumulation type, and it wasn't until the middle of my 6th birthday that it was finally able to do something. During that time, people thought I had no powers and made fun of me, to the point where they even hit me. I can't imagine if that had been my life for more than 10 years. For your quirk to take so long to accumulate energy must have been complicated." He gave her a slight smile of understanding. For some reason, he felt comfortable talking to her about his past, probably because she also lived through something similar to him, although much worse. Memories of being teased, talked behind her back, and beaten by her classmates in elementary school came flooding back to Melissa. Even when her father took her to Island, she could feel the discrimination from other people. Unconsciously, a tear escaped her right eye and she quickly wiped it away so Izuku wouldn't see it. She thought she'd outgrown her quirkless stage when she received One for All from All Might, but the memory still weighed on her conscience. The memory of something Izuku said brought her out of her thoughts. Accumulation? How do you know my quirk is accumulation? She asked, intrigued. Izuku shrugged and stated the obvious. I copied her. You copied her? Melissa exclaimed, surprising Izuku. Yeah, well, with the display of power you put on, I couldn't hold back. I did it when I saved you from falling when you destroyed Point Zero with a single blow. He explained what happened while raising his hands trying to appease Melissa. But how? All Might said that One for All can't be copied or stolen. Melissa thought the last thing, and you were able to use it? She asked calmer and taking a step back. Not entirely, she replied. What do you mean by not entirely? My quirk can copy other people's quirks, including the power they obtained by training it, but if the quirk is an accumulation quirk, I can't copy what it needs to accumulate. That's why when I tried to use it that same day, nothing happened. At that explanation Melissa sighed and calmed down. If it weren't for that logic. An image of Izuku's limbs separating from his body appeared in her mind. Although thinking about it, I don't think I'll have that many problems, she thought, directing a glance at Izuku's body. She could notice how hidden beneath his school uniform was a well-toned body. Izuku kept it a secret that his quirk had disappeared and that he could no longer copy it. He still had to figure out what happened. They had talked so much that they didn't realize when they arrived at the station. When their train arrived, they both got on and sat in silence thinking about their own things, until Izuku had an idea. Melissa. Yeah? You said you didn't know Musatefu, right? How about I take you on a tour of the city? There are several good places that it would be a shame if you didn't know, he proposed with a smile. Are you sure? I don't want to be a bother. It's not. Consider it a welcome to Japan. Besides, if classes are going to be as intense as they were today, then it wouldn't hurt to relax every once in a while. Having no reason to turn him down, Melissa agreed. They continued talking about trivial matters until Melissa had to get off. Izuku stayed on the train until he reached his station. As he walked home, he recounted his day. He had met his classmates and teacher, who was a pro hero with an extremely useful quirk. His other classmates also had exceptional quirks, especially Todoroki Shoto. Who would have thought the son of the number 2 hero would be in his class? He checked his insides and felt the quirks he had at that moment. Duplicate Arms, by Mezzo Shoji. He admits that great physical strength is something to consider, but what most caught his attention about the quirk is the ability to transform his arms into appendages like eyes, a mouth, or ears. As Shoji explains, the transformations are more powerful than normal senses. Zero Gravity, by Urakao Chako. By touching anything, living or non-living, with the 5 pads on her fingertips, she can nullify the force of gravity, causing it to float. The effect is cancelled when the pads of both hands are pressed together. Apparently, overusing the quirk will cause severe nausea. Tenya Ida's engine. Engines grow on his legs, increasing his movement speed and also improving his reflexes and reaction time. It will take him some time to get used to the power of the engines. He'll probably switch to a more user-friendly one. Finally, Super Strength from Death Arms. When he got home, he was greeted by a hug from Minko and the food was ready. He sat down with his mother to eat, and they talked about their first day. Afterward, he went to his room to review the lesson plan Izawa had left them. The second day at UA began with regular English and math classes. When lunchtime arrived, everyone headed to the school cafeteria, where they met the hero lunch rush. For the last class of the day, they would have basic hero training. All the students waited expectantly to see who their teacher would be. I heard All Might is working as a teacher for the heroic classes. It would be great if we were paired with him, Kirishima said, trying to strike up a conversation with Bakugo, but receiving no response. Who do you think our teacher will be, Midoriya? Melissa asked, walking over to Izuku, who didn't respond as he was focused on his notes. When she didn't get a response, Melissa leaned over to see what was in Izuku's notebook. She was surprised when she saw how fast he was writing and muttering. "Whoa, what's that?" She pointed at the notebook in surprise and curiosity, but was once again ignored. Slightly irritated by the lack of response, she took the pencil from Izuku, who was writing in the air for a second longer until he realized he wasn't holding anything. Confused, the green-haired boy looked up and saw Melissa holding her pencil. "What's wrong, Melissa? What do you write so carefully that you disconnect from the world?" I've been talking to you. She put her pencil on the table and walked around behind Izuku so she could read his notebook. It's just some unimportant notes. I like to analyze quirks and discover how I can use them. Melissa leaned over Izuku's shoulder and looked at the notebook. She was surprised to see a detailed analysis of Yaoyorozu's quirk on both sides of the notebook. Even though she only gave a brief explanation of what it did, the notes contained dozens of theories about how the quirk was used. Impressive, she couldn't help but say when she saw Izuku's great analysis. Do you have any others? She asked curiously. Yes, I have everyone's in the class, although this is only a draft. I still need some more information to be sure of what it can do. Maybe if I copy them all I'll have the information I want. Melissa was surprised by Izuku's great intellect. He didn't know if this interest in analyzing quirks was a product of his own power or just something that came from him, but it was kind of impressive. His father would love to have a long conversation with the green-haired boy. Before he could say anything else, footsteps sounded in the hallway, and everyone turned to look at the door. I'm here, coming in like a normal person, All Might exclaimed, entering through the door doing a dancer pose. It's really him. It's All Might. He'll be our teacher. Amazing. Are the students' comments upon seeing the number one hero. I'll be teaching your basic hero training. Here you'll practice the basics of how to be a hero. It'll be your longest serving class. But let's not waste time, we're starting now. Today you'll have combat training, All Might exclaimed, showing a card with the word battle written on it. The students couldn't help but get excited by what their teacher had said. To do this, you'll have to wear this, he pointed to the wall, which revealed a few compartments with suitcases inside. Suits made based on your quirks and taking into account the design you submitted before entering. Each student took the suitcase with their number and went to the locker room. All Might stood at the end of a tunnel as he watched his students cross it. They say the suit makes the hero, young men and women. Keep that in mind, because from now on, all of you are heroes. The entire Class 1A crossed the tunnel wearing all sorts of extravagant outfits. From a black cape that covered their entire body, to clothes so skimpy they barely left anything to the imagination. From medieval armor to a diaper. The teens started talking about their outfits and each other's. Midoriya, you look great, Melissa said, walking over to Izuku next to Uraka. Even if it's a little simple, you look really good, Midoriya, Uraka agreed. Izuku's hero outfit consisted of a tight-fitting dark green t-shirt with two black lines running down the sides, dark green cargo pants, a red utility belt, and red boots. Thanks girls, you look really good too. Izuku looked away, blushing slightly at the two girls' outfits. Uraka's outfit was a skin-tight black and pink jumpsuit, with large, thick boots and a helmet with a transparent visor. Melissa wore a skin-tight white jumpsuit with gold and blue lines running across her body, and she also had black metallic armor that ran from her feet to her knees. Her arms were covered in a type of white glove, with the same line patterns as the rest of her outfit, which reached past her elbow without reaching her shoulder. A blue utility belt also rested around her waist. The girls, somewhat confused by Izuku's reaction, continued talking. I should have been more specific about my outfit, it's too tight, Uraka commented, scratching her head. Me too. This outfit shows off my figure too much, and it's kind of embarrassing, Melissa said. A couple of meters behind them, Mineta gave a thumbs up as a line of blood ran down his nose. Cough cough cough, All Might called out, time to start. Ida raised his hand, asking to speak. Professor, this is the entrance exam center. Is it going to be urban combat again? No, we'll skip a couple of steps. Most fights with villains occur outside, but the most fearsome villains hide indoors. That's why today we'll have indoor combat. You'll be divided into groups of 2, heroes and villains. The villains will have to hide and protect a nuclear weapon from the heroes until you defeat them or time runs out. On the other hand, the heroes will have to search for the bomb and deactivate it. It will only take one touch to do it. You can also win by wrapping the villains in this capture tape. He showed some white tapes. Professor, how will the groups be divided? Will there be expulsion? How is the winner determined? Can I make them explode? Isn't my cape beautiful? All Might was bombarded by dozens of questions. After 5 minutes of answering questions, All Might called the class to order and brought out a box of papers. Everyone took a sheet of paper and formed teams. Team A, Izuku, Uraka. Team B, Jiru, Kaminari. Team C, Tokoyami, Asui. Team D, Bakugo, Ida. Team E, Ojiro, Hagakure. Team F, Melissa, Ashido. Team G, Mineta, Yaoyorozu. Team H, Todoroki, Shoji. Team I, Kirishima, Sero. Team J, Sato, Aoyama. With the teams already chosen, All Might pulled out 2 more boxes with the word villain and hero written on each one. He stuck an arm into each box and fluttered the balls inside. And the first teams to face off will be. He pulled out 2 balls, Team A as the heroes and Team D as the villains. Izuku couldn't hold back a laugh at the odds of that happening. Villains, get in and get ready, in 5 minutes the heroes will enter and the battle will begin. The rest of you come with me to the monitoring room, All Might said, walking to a nearby building followed by the other students. Bakugo shot Izuku an annoyed glare, and Izuku responded with equal intensity. I'll destroy you, Bakugo declared. I want to see you try, Izuku replied, baring his teeth in a challenging grin. The villains entered the building, and the heroes stood outside waiting for the fight to begin. I think we should make a plan, the brunette said, looking at the entrance of the building. You're right, she turned to look at her. One thing is certain. Bakugo will come straight for me. You have to take advantage of that and go directly to the bomb and try to recover it. If you can't, just hold on until I finish with Bakugo and I'll go support you, Izuku said very confidently. Are you sure you can beat him? Bakugo seems like someone very strong, Uraka couldn't help but ask. The two of us have faced each other several times, although we never did it with all our power because we could get into trouble. Even so, Bakugo won most of the times. So, if the two of us go together we would have a better probability. She was interrupted when Izuku continued speaking. But he never left unscathed. He was never able to fully defeat me before a teacher stopped us, even when the quirks he had didn't help in combat or were incompatible with each other. He raised a hand to his gaze and closed it into a fist. But now, with the powers I have, I'm sure I'll win. Izuku's determination infected Uraka, motivating her even more to win. In the next few minutes, they both created a plan that, although simple, should work. Uraka would float up to the ceiling using her quirk and from there she would start going down until she reached the room where the bomb is, and probably Ida alone, and would try to catch it. For his part, Izuku would go up from the inside, where he would probably meet Bakugo and they would fight. If for some reason Izuku couldn't defeat Bakugo, and Uraka couldn't touch the bomb, then Uraka would go down to support Izuku and take Bakugo by surprise. Ida would probably stay behind to protect the bomb. The 5 minutes passed and the plan began. Izuku activated duplicate arms and formed multiple ears on his limbs. They're between the 4th and 5th floors, be careful. Go, he informed, and Uraka used her quirk on herself to float to the roof. When Uraka reached the roof she gave Izuku a thumbs up and left. Izuku walked inside and continued listening. The sound of explosions reached his ears and the green-haired boy knew that Bakugo had left Ida alone. Moving one of his hands to his original ear, he activated the intercom. Bakugo left the base. I'll take care of him like we agreed. You get the bomb. Okay, I will, Uraka replied, going down the stairs. In the monitoring room. What are those things on his arms? Kaminar asked, pointing at Izuku on a monitor. They look like ears, Ashido commented. It's my quirk. Shoji caught his attention. I can replicate parts of my body and my tentacles. He spoke through a mouth on one of his limbs. Right, I had forgotten you could do that, but I thought Izuku couldn't control the quirks he copies. How do he do it? Sarah said. The truth is very simple, he just has to imagine what he wants to duplicate and it will form itself, Shoji explained, turning his other tentacles into eyes, mouths and ears. In the test building, Izuku started quickly up the stairs, always keeping an arm and ear to follow Bakugo's movements. He heard the explosions getting closer and prepared to greet the blonde. Bakugo moved quickly through the hallways, using his explosions to propel him. He was so used to the sound of his explosions that he could even hear them, just as he heard Izuku's footsteps at the turn in the next hallway. Motivated by his anger and his desire to win, he increased the intensity of his explosions and crossed the hallway in a few seconds. Izuku saw Bakugo and the incoming attack. He slid to the side of the blast and whipped his elongated arm, brutally slamming into Bakugo and sending him flying back into the hallway, crashing through the wall at the end. In the monitoring room, they could only help but groan and shudder at the powerful blow Bakugo had received. What the hell? He finished him off with one hit? Kaminari commented in amazement. Gosh, that hit was monstrous, Sero said. He tried to launch a surprise attack, but Midoriya was prepared and repelled it with an attack. Surprising, Yaoyorozu said, looking at the green-haired boy on the monitor. No, wait, this isn't over yet, look, Kirishima pointed to another monitor that showed Bakugo lying face down on the floor. I didn't manage to hit him directly. His reflexes are truly impressive, Izuku said, returning his arm to normal size, but without deactivating the quirk. Bakugo's arms tensed and he began to slowly get up from the ground. That bastard. He knew I was coming and set a trap for me, he thought as he coughed. The grenade-shaped gauntlets Bakugo had on his arms were made of a heavy and very resistant material to explosions. It was this last characteristic that helped him withstand Izuku's blow, at least without losing his arm. In the last instant before Izuku's blow reached him, Bakugo moved his right arm and covered his chest with his gauntlet. The gauntlet had ended up completely destroyed, but Bakugo knew that if he hadn't done so, it most likely would have broken his ribs. A red liquid dripped down his hand and the blonde realized he was bleeding from the head. The sound of engines beyond the cloud of smoke separating him from Izuku alerted him. Izuku dashed through the cloud of smoke with great speed, his right arms raised, ready to strike. Purely on instinct, Bakugo triggered an explosion that knocked him out of the way of the green-haired boy's arms, which crashed into the ground, creating a large hole leading to the floor below. When Bakugo fell to the ground, he quickly got back to his feet, ready for a fight. Duplicate arms plus super strength plus engine, makes me a very fast tank. But, despite the fact that mutant quirks don't consume too much energy, the physical burden on the body is greater. I have to finish Bakugo before he can no longer take it, Izuku thought, feeling the tension in his body. The engines in his legs ignited, preparing him for another charge. Ignoring the numbness in his arm, Bakugo detonated explosions in both palms, ready to counterattack. As Uraka ran down the stairs and Ida threw the things in the room out the window, a loud bang was heard throughout the building, alerting them that the fight had begun. Uraka turned down a hallway, seeing at the end a half-open door, burned and almost torn off its hinges. Probably from Bakugo's explosion. In the space of the door, she saw Ida running back and forth across the room carrying things. She used her quirk on herself and pushed off the walls to get closer without making a sound with her steps. She spun in the air, so she was upside down, and grabbed the top of the door frame. She saw Ida throwing all the things in the room out the window, probably so she couldn't use them against him and that they wouldn't be an obstacle when she needed to run. While Ida was distracted, carrying some kind of explosive device, Uraka made a move. She stretched out her arms and positioned her body straight, aiming at the bomb in the middle of the room. Using all her strength, she pushed off and flew into the air. When she was close enough to the bomb, she deactivated her quirk and landed on top of it. Ida saw movement out of the corner of his eye. He turned and saw Uraka falling toward the bomb. Using his engines, he ran at full speed until he reached the bomb, grabbed it, and ran to the far side. Uraka fell hard on the ground and spun around until she collided with a column. "Gosh, I thought I was going to make it," she complained, rubbing her head. "You almost caught me off guard, heroine, but you were too slow. Give up, you don't stand a chance against my evilness, ha 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 ha." Ida's speech made the brunette laugh. He really got into character, she thought, standing up and looking around. Many of the things had been thrown away, but there were still some she could use. She raised her hand to her intercom and spoke in a whisper so Ida wouldn't hear her. "I found the bomb, it's on the 5th floor. I'm about to face Ida." Without waiting for a response, Uraka ran towards the villain and used her quirk on a piece of furniture to throw it at him. Izuku covered himself with his arms from an explosion that pushed him back. Bakugo lashed out with more explosions, but Izuku slammed into the wall, sending debris hurtling towards the blonde and forcing him back. An elongated hand shot out of the dust cloud and grabbed Bakugo's foot. Izuku twisted his body and yanked his arm down, slamming into Bakugo's body and creating a fissure in the ground. Adrenaline and his instincts compelled him to move and detonate an explosion at point-blank range at Izuku using both palms. Even with his enhanced perception and reflexes, Izuku wasn't expecting Bakugo's immediate response and barely had time to cover himself with his other arm. The green-haired man was sent flying down the hallway and tumbled to the ground. For his part, the explosion had pushed Bakugo further than he should have until his head hit the wall at the end of the hallway and ended up very dazed. Izuku's quirks automatically deactivated as he tried to stand up. "Oh shit, this is going to hurt tomorrow," he said, looking at his arms covered in multiple burns and cuts. He looked behind him and saw what little remained of that hallway. It literally had no walls anymore, and holes to the lower level adorned the floors. Slightly wobbly, he managed to get to his feet. A huge cloud of dust covered what little remained of the hallway, separating him from Bakugo. Coming out of semi-consciousness, Bakugo grabbed his head in pain and could feel it was wet. A feeling of weightlessness enveloped his body, and he thought it was from the blow, but when he slowly opened his eyes, he saw the ceiling inches from his face. He was floating. Izuku took one last breath and reactivated his quirks. His height increased, his new arms grew, super strength accompanied the mutation, and the pads on his fingers remained in place. However, this time there were no more engines. The familiar boom of their explosions behind the dust cloud alerted Bakugo. He used a small explosion to throw himself back onto the ground. The noise of his gauntlet and the return of his weight distracted Bakugo. He cursed when he saw Izuku burst out of the dust cloud, using his six-armed quirk to fly towards him like a speeding locomotive. This time Bakugo's great reflexes failed to save him as Izuku slammed into him like a bullet train, and they both crashed through the wall and into a large room. Resisting the immense pain of the onslaught, Bakugo planted his hands on Izuku's chest as they both spun in the air in slow motion. That wasn't a very good idea, Izuku thought, watching the blonde's palms glow. The massive explosion sent Izuku flying and crashing into the wall of the large room. Bakugo fell to the ground, tumbling to a stop, gasping for breath. In the monitoring room. Incredible. Both of them are monsters in a fight, Ojiro said, seeing the great destruction they had done to the building. Neither of them gives up, they are very manly, Kirishima said, watching as Izuku and Bakugo tried to stand up despite their injuries. All Might Sensei, don't you think I should stop them? They're taking this too far, Yaoyorozu suggested, watching as Bakugo staggered and fell back to his knees. All Might carefully assessed the condition of both of them and made a decision: if either of you receives a severe attack once more, then I will be forced to stop the fight. He spoke only to Izuku and Bakugo's intercoms. Beside him, Melissa watched a little worried about Izuku's condition. Bakugo gritted his teeth in annoyance. His vision was swirling and blurry. To top it all off, All Might wanted to stop the fight. He wasn't done with the shitty Deku who dared to hit him yet, and he wouldn't stop until he got what he deserved. Izuku stood up and calmed his breathing as much as he could as he watched Bakugo stagger back and forth. Thanks to the increased resilience provided by super strength and duplicate arms, nothing was broken, but the physical wear and tear he felt was crushing him like a ton. What All Might had said gave him an idea of how this fight would end. One last attack from both of them at full force. You, fucking Deku, you fucked up my amazing future by bringing your worthless ass into UA. I was supposed to be the only one getting in here, but you always get in my way. You think you're better than me? Does having the quirks of a bunch of morons make you think you're superior to me? You're nothing but trash under my feet, Bakugo ranted, looking at Izuku, blood running down his face. I'm guessing you, fucking stalker, already know how my quirk works, so you know these grenades aren't just for decoration. Izuku's eyes widened as he understood what she was saying. Bakugo raised his last gauntlet, pointing it at Izuku, and removed the safety catch. Die. Izuku quickly formed all the hands he could and pointed them straight at Bakugo. A massive explosion was released from the gauntlet and 6 full-power blasts erupted from the green-haired man's palms. The explosions collided and merged, resulting in another massive explosion all around. The building shook violently, to the point where it seemed as if it might collapse. Uraka took advantage of Ida's imbalance to slam him into a desk and stagger over to the bomb. The hero team wins. All Might announced through the loudspeakers. The entire building fell deathly silent. Suddenly, cracks began to spread everywhere. The columns on the 3rd floor, where Izuku and Bakugo were fighting, collapsed from the damage. Without any firm support, the upper floors began to crumble. Izuku crawled out from under some rubble, seeing the ceiling collapsing on top of him. He got out of the way of the debris and started running toward the stairs, but stopped when he remembered Bakugo. The ground beneath Uraka collapsed, and she would have fallen if Ida hadn't run to grab her. The test is over, now we must try to get out of here, Ida said, watching as everything began to collapse. Don't move, I'll go help you. All Might ordered his students in the observation room before jumping through the ceiling. Izuku ran with an unconscious Bakugo on his shoulder and jumped out the 2nd floor window just before the building crushed him. Ida ran with Uraka on his back and crashed through the 5th floor window. Uraka used her quirk on the two of them to keep from falling. The lack of gravity and the force of the engines caused them both to spin uncontrollably in the air. Just as they were about to crash into the building in front of them, All Might arrived and saved them. After getting off, Izuku met up with All Might and his teammates. Is everyone okay? He asked worriedly. Yes, we're fine. Just a little beaten up in our fight, Ida replied, taking off his helmet. I thought I was going to be crushed to death, Uraka said, sitting on the ground. Young Midoriya, you and young Bakugo should have controlled yourselves more, this kind of outcome could have been fatal for either side. A hero's duty is also to reduce material damage to a minimum, All Might scolded. I'm sorry, he left Bakugo on the ground. Your fight was also very reckless. You could have caused irreparable damage. All Might didn't like to scold young people he was just learning, but if he didn't correct this behavior, it would most likely only get worse. The medical robots arrived and took Bakugo away. Izuku refused help because he could still walk and followed them. Uraka and Dita went with All Might to the monitoring room. When they arrived, All Might mentally slapped himself at the massive hole he had left in the ceiling. Cementos wouldn't be happy about this, and he also saw a scolding from Izuku and Recovery Girl coming for allowing the two teens to get that far. This stupid meathead, Recovery Girl, was annoyed to see Izuku and Bakugo arrive so damaged. "Hey," Izuku greeted with a nervous smile. "Lie down on the bed while I check on your partner," she pointed to a stretcher to the side. As soon as Izuku finished settling into the stretcher, he fell unconscious. "Normally I'd ask for your opinion on the results of the test, but I don't think it's necessary," All Might said, looking at the monitors, which only showed static. "For now, we'll use another building to continue the fights." After synchronizing the monitors with another set of cameras in another building, he took the two balls out of the equipment box again. The next ones to face each other will be. After the first match, the rest of the fights were fairly normal. The only ones that stood out were Tokoyami and Asui as heroes against Kirishima and Sero as villains. In the end, the team of heroes won by capturing both villains within the allotted time. The final match arrived, and the last two groups prepared to fight. Melissa and Ashido as villains against Todoroki and Shoji as heroes. All Might had hoped to finish this class with just the injured Izuku and Bakugo, but the next match would disappoint him greatly. The final battle was about to begin. Melissa and Ashido were lying in the room next to the bomb, planning what they were going to do, while Todoroki and Shoji were standing at the entrance, waiting for All Might to start the fight. Shoji tried to strike up a conversation with the ice-covered teen, but was only told to stay away from the building when the test began. "The battle has begun. Heroes, you may enter," All Might's voice came through the speakers. Shoji extended his arms and formed ears. After a couple of seconds, he retracted his limbs and said, "You're on the 5th floor, on the south side of the building." Todoroki just nodded and walked towards the building. Not wanting to be left behind, Shoji was about to enter as well, but stopped in confusion when Todoroki placed his right hand on the wall. Ice spread from the two-colored man's hand to cover the entire building in a few seconds. Todoroki let out a cold breath and entered the building like Peter at home. Shoji came out of his stupor and watched as his companion's back disappeared into a hallway. "I was useless," he thought, looking back at the frozen building. "That's crazy. He froze the entire building in an instant," Kaminari exclaimed. "That's a really powerful quirk. I don't think anyone could fight against something like that," Ojiro commented. "He froze the entire building and immobilized his opponents. Impressive," Yaoyorozu said, watching Todoroki walk up the stairs calmly, as if victory was already assured. "Look, he didn't quite catch them," Jiro pointed at the monitor showing Melissa and Ashido. Both girls' legs were frozen up to their thighs. The ice had surprised them and trapped them, leaving them unable to do anything at the time. Melissa activated 5% of the OFA in her legs and destroyed the ice. Ashido generated acid from her arms and burned the ice, freeing herself. "It's too cold." Ashido trembled in place as she hugged herself, trying to warm up. Melissa wasn't any better. Her suit was made to withstand blows, not the cold. She remembered the warm feeling of using OFA on her legs and decided to activate it on her limbs to warm up. Just as she expected, the cold began to fade little by little, but it still wasn't enough. The lines on her arms and legs spread further, encompassing her entire torso and head. The blonde's eyes widened in surprise as the lines disappeared and golden lightning sparked around her in their place. "What's that?" Ashido asked, considering her companion's new appearance. "I think I discovered something fascinating," Melissa replied, looking at her glowing body. In the monitoring room, All Might's smile widened as he saw Melissa wearing the OFA properly. While the reason wasn't particularly impressive, she had figured it out for herself. Behind him, he could hear his students murmuring about Melissa's new appearance and what it might mean. Todoroki walked calmly through the building until he reached the 5th floor. When he left the stairs, he didn't notice that the ice covering them had cracked. He walked to the south side of the building as Shoji had instructed and searched the rooms, defrosting the doors by touching them with his left hand. She was melting the ice on one of the doors when she heard quick footsteps from inside. She dove to the side just before the door flew off its hinges and slammed into the wall. Ashido burst out of the room and sent a jet of acid at the two-colored girl on the floor. "My ass is freezing, Todoroki." Touching the ground with her right hand, She created a wall of ice to protect herself. She quickly stood up and sent a wave of ice crashing through the wall she had created toward Ashido. The pink-haired teen had no problem skating with great agility, jumping onto the ice, and counter-attacking with another jet of acid, which Todoroki dodged. From outside the building, Shoji saw Melissa, glowing with golden lightning around her, standing at a fifth-floor window. Melissa noticed him and winked at him before dropping down. As she fell, she turned around and grabbed the fourth-floor window frame. She easily re-entered the building. Shoji realized he had made a mistake by staying down there, believing there was nothing he could do. Without a second's hesitation, he ran back inside the building. Melissa moved nimbly through the hallways of the fourth floor. On an island, she had practiced skating as a hobby, and now she was putting that knowledge to good use. On the other hand, the new way of using One for All made it easier for her to control it and distribute the power throughout her body. She found the stairs to go up to the fifth floor and jumped across them, not touching a single step. She glided through the hallways, following the noise of the fight between Todoroki and Ashido. Ashido dodged the ice wave again, but she had already run out of places to escape. Meanwhile, Todoroki continued with his stoic gaze, not moving from where he was, as if fighting her would be no difficulty. With no other choice, Ashido charged directly at Todoroki. A desperate attack, how pathetic. The two-colored man ducked under Ashido's arm and placed his right hand on her abdomen. The ice quickly spread throughout her body until it completely covered her. Todoroki took a step back and stood up. He placed his left hand over Ashido's frozen face and the ice began to melt. "Don't try anything, even your acid will take a long time to melt this ice and you will do more unnecessary damage," he said after finishing melting the ice on Ashido's face. "You fell." A weak smile appeared on the girl's bluer face as she looked behind the two-colored man. At that moment, Todoroki realized he'd forgotten about Melissa. He quickly turned to defend himself, but it was too late, she was already right in front of him. Melissa's fist slammed into his abdomen with great force, and he could feel all the air being expelled from his insides. Just before he flew out and crashed into the ice he had created, Todoroki managed to graze the arm she'd hit him with, freezing it. Melissa flexed her frozen arm and broke the ice with ease. She turned to Ashido and punched through the ice, taking care not to hurt her. She wanted to help her more, but she knew Todoroki was a formidable enemy, and she couldn't let him rest for even a second, especially now that she knew he could freeze the entire building. She ran back towards Todoroki, who had already recovered from the surprise attack, to continue attacking him, but a wall of ice got in her way. Without stopping her run, she made a great leap upwards. She twisted her body in the air so that her leg hit the ceiling and pushed her down. Todoroki jumped back and Melissa crashed into the frozen ground, shattering the ice. Melissa kicked the ground hard, directing the ice shards at Todoroki, who had to cover himself with his arms. From the latter's right foot, a wave of ice erupted, and the proximity prevented Melissa from completely dodging it, but the ice attack had been generated so quickly that Todoroki didn't have time to make it that resistant. Melissa used her increased strength and freed herself from the ice and then jumped again towards Todoroki. She tried to hit him, but her fist was easily deflected, and she received a knee to the stomach, causing her to lose control of the Yofa and it deactivated. Todoroki placed his hand on Melissa's side and generated a large amount of ice that crushed her against the wall. This time he was careful and made the ice dance enough that she couldn't break it. He sighed and unconsciously brought a hand to his stomach, where Melissa had hit him. He turned to go towards the bomb, but was greeted with a jet of acid that covered his entire face. Ashido put on a victorious smile. The acid he had made wasn't going to melt her skin, but it would cause a strong burning sensation, and her face was sensitive. She tried to get closer to knock out the two-colored man who was holding his face in pain, but a bloodshot look surprised her. In an instant, the corridor was completely covered in ice, leaving no empty space. Ashido's body lay in the middle of the ice, completely frozen, as if she were a foe found in Antarctica. Everyone in the monitoring room was once again surprised by the power of the bicolor, yet there were still several concerned about Ashido's condition. Melissa tried to call out to Todoroki to release Ashido, but he just kept holding his face while muttering a couple of things that she couldn't hear. He also had his right leg frozen to the ground. Shoji ran through the corridors of the fourth floor, a little unsteady on the slippery ice. He found the stairs to the fifth floor and saw that the entire bottom was covered in ice. He'd have to break it if he wanted to get through. He started up the stairs, but halfway up, the ice cracked. A large fissure formed at both ends of the stairs. The ice had covered it, so he couldn't see it. Before Shoji could do anything, the stairs gave way and collapsed onto the floor above. Melissa reactivated the Yofa at 5%, But the ice was so strong that it would take her a long time to break it, something she didn't have. Not caring about the damage to her bones and muscles, she jumped from 5% to 10%, freeing herself. She immediately returned to 5% and ignored the pain in her limbs. She turned her attention to where Ashido was frozen. A punch at 5% wouldn't do anything, and one at 100% was too much. She raised her right arm, and red lines ran across it. One for all 45%, she said in her mind, extending her fist, Texas Smash. The ice didn't last even a second and was destroyed by Melissa's powerful punch. A strong draft entered the hallway, and most of the ice was pushed out of the building through the windows. Todoroki's frozen leg prevented him from flying away as well. When the draft calmed down, Melissa ran directly to her partner who was lying on the ground, her body more blue than it should be normal. "She's going into hypothermia, I must increase her body heat," she said, kneeling while holding Ashido's body in her arms and trying to warm her with her own body. An alarm sounded through the building, ending the fight, but this couldn't matter less to Melissa. "Todoroki, help me. You said you could generate fire from your left side." She remembered the brief explanation the bicolor gave the day before. "You have to warm Ashido up. Use your fire on her." No matter what Melissa said, Todoroki was still trapped in his own world, sitting on the ground and clutching his face, but when he mentioned his fire, his body shuddered. "I'll never use that bastard's fire," he muttered, but it was heard by the blonde. All Might entered through the shattered window and took Ashido with him, but not before ordering Melissa to go to the infirmary and Todoroki to return to the monitoring room with Shoji and wait there for him to return. Izuku opened his eyes to the sight of a white ceiling. He sat up on the stretcher and remembered he was in the infirmary. He turned to his side and saw Ashido sleeping on another stretcher while she was covered by multiple blankets and Recovery Girl beside her monitoring her vital signs. What happened? The heroine turned her gaze to Izuku. "So you're awake, how are you feeling?" "I don't feel any pain, but I feel a little tired," he replied, flexing his arms and shoulders. "It's normal. I used my quirk on you, you'll feel this way until you get a good rest. You only had some burns, bruises, and bone fractures, nothing close to what you had in the entrance exam, so you should be fine with some food and relaxing," he explained, finishing checking Ashido and walking to his desk. "You should go back to class. The day isn't over yet. Your classmates probably won't be able to wake up in time, so give this to your teacher." He wrote something on a piece of paper and handed it to Izuku. The paper said that Ashido and Bakugo wouldn't be able to attend class because they were still recovering. He looked up again and saw Bakugo on a stretcher in the farther part, his hero suit completely destroyed and with bandages on many parts of his body. He looked at Recovery Girl and asked, "What happened to her?" He stood up and noticed that the entire top of his hero suit was destroyed as well. He just had a bad opponent. "Stop wasting your time and mine and get back to class." He pulled a bag from his desk. "Here's a spare uniform. Go to the locker room and change." Unable to reply, Izuku grabbed the bag, thanked Recovery Girl, and left. When he returned to class, he handed the note to his current teacher, Midnight, and went to his seat. As he walked among his classmates, he saw Melissa, her head resting on her arms, sleeping. He also noticed that her right arm was bandaged. "She's probably using her quirk until she hurts herself again," he thought, sitting down, ignoring the blank stare from Todoroki. After school, Izuku, Uraka, and Ida accompanied Melissa to the infirmary to see Ashido. Fortunately for the green-haired boy, Bakugo had left shortly before they arrived. The four teenagers stayed in the infirmary, chatting with Ashido while she drank a cup of hot chocolate. Everyone was kicked out of the infirmary when Recovery Girl got fed up with their yelling, and even Ashido had to leave since she was already fine. Upon leaving UA, everyone headed to the train station and each said goodbye, taking different trains, except for Izuku and Melissa, who went together on the same train, because they lived in the same district. As they sat down, Melissa told him how she had discovered a new way to use her quirk. Seeing that there was no one else in the same car, she decided to show it to him. The red lines shone over her clothes as they ran over her body. When they completely covered her, they disappeared, and in their place, golden rays sparkled around her. Izuku was a little surprised by the color. When he used it, the rays were green. Curiously, the colors of his rays matched the colors of his hair. When Melissa's stop arrived, they said their goodbyes until the next day. Izuku left his house on his way to UA. When he arrived, he was surprised to see the entire entrance packed with reporters harassing any student who approached. He briefly considered using zero gravity to float over the UA wall, but it would be bad if the press recorded him using a quirk without authorization in a public space. With no other option, he joined the pack of reporters who quickly surrounded him. "You're a first-year student, right? How is All Might as a teacher?" asked a reporter who practically slammed the microphone in the green-haired boy's face. Well, he's very charismatic," he replied, embarrassed by all the attention, and then entered the academy. Shortly after, Uraka arrived and was asked the same question. "He's very muscular and funny," she replied, flexing her arms. Next was Melissa. Even though it's her first time teaching, her effort to do her best is remarkable. Next up was Ida, who bored them with a long speech about the importance of teaching and little to nothing about All Might. The reporters asked someone else, but it turned out to be Izuku. "You're interrupting the student entrance, go away," he said with a bored look. "We just want to know about All Might. Can you call him?" The reporter insisted. "He's not working today, come back another day or maybe never." Izuku turned around and entered UA. "Wait, you can't leave us." The woman tried to follow Izuku, but before she could take a step inside the facilities, a large barrier emerged from the ground and sealed the entrance. Likewise, other barriers appeared behind the walls, making any attempt to climb them impossible. "What the hell? You think you're so untouchable, huh? But no matter what it takes, I'll get that interview with All Might," said the reporter, hitting the barrier. Behind the press, a guy with grayish-blue hair, wearing a hooded sweatshirt that covered his eyes, was smiling maniacally. When all his students were gathered in the classroom, Izuku began class. "I reviewed the videos of yesterday's fights. Bakugo, Midoriya, your actions were nothing short of disappointing. You lost control of your fight and caused the building to collapse, endangering your classmates. If this had been a real situation, many innocent lives would have been lost. Not only because of the collapse, but also because the bomb would have exploded. I hope this is the last time this happens. Next time, you will both be expelled," he scolded sternly and received a nod from both teenagers. "On the other hand, Melissa, I noticed that you already found a way to use your quirk with greater stability, but you still ended up breaking your arm. You still have a lot to improve, but you are on the right track." Melissa was happy with her teacher's comment. "And Todoroki, losing control over your power like that is very dangerous. Besides Ashido, you could have harmed other people who were nearby. Not only that, but you used your quirk to help her even after the fight was already over. I don't care about your motives, but if you don't open your mind and learn to control yourself then you don't deserve to be here." Izuku's harsh words hit the bicolor who could only clench his fists in irritation. "For the rest of you, even if you weren't badly hurt, you still have a lot to improve. If you can't meet the expectations that UA imposes, then leave the academy. Heroism is not for you, but if you want to be the best you will have to give your all. Go plus ultra." "Okay, now let's talk about today's class." The students paid close attention to what Izuku was going to say. Will it be some special test? They all wondered. "Today you will choose your class representatives." They all relaxed upon hearing that it would be something normal. Noise quickly filled the classroom as all the students began shouting that they wanted to be class representatives. "Everyone calm down, please. Being a class representative is a job with the responsibility of leading others. It can't be done by just anyone. It's a role that requires the trust of others. If we want to be democratic, the best thing to do is hold a vote." Ida spoke to the entire class. "Ida, you're the one with the arm raised the highest out of all of us," Kaminari said, pointing at him. "We barely know each other, it's obvious everyone will vote for themselves," Asui said. "That's exactly why a vote is the best option. If someone receives a lot of votes, isn't that the person they trust the most? What do you think, Professor?" Ida asked. "I don't care what you do, just finish before the time change," Izuku replied as he got into a sleeping bag and lay down on the floor. "Then it's decided. We'll do it by vote." After everyone had cast their vote, the result was displayed on the board. 3 points, Melissa Shield. 2 points, Izuku Midoriya. The rest doesn't matter. "What? Who voted for that idiot Deku?" Bakugo yelled angrily. "Well, it's better than voting for you," Sero said. Both winners walked to the front of the class. "So the Shield representative and the vice representative is Midoriya," Izuku said. "I wasn't expecting this result, even more so after what happened yesterday," Izuku said to himself. "You'll be fine, anyone can make mistakes." Melissa put a hand on his shoulder. "What does surprise me is that you got so many points. Well, you proved to be very intelligent and adept in battle, besides, you already saved someone." Izuku nodded to Mina, who was giving them a thumbs up with a big smile. "I guess so," she replied, scratching her head a little nervously. Lunchtime arrived and all the students went to the cafeteria. Izuku, Ida, Uraka, Melissa, and Mina sat together at the same table. "Today's food is just as delicious," Uraka commented as she put a spoonful of food in her mouth. "I'm a little nervous. I don't know if I'll do well as a representative. It's the first time I've held a position of responsibility," Melissa said thoughtfully. "You'll do well. Your intelligence and reaction in times of crisis, in addition to your great strength, are proof of that," Ida said. "It's true, if it weren't for your help, I would have turned into a pink popsicle," Mina supported with a bit of humor. "I'm glad you both managed to become representative. I can't think of anyone else besides you who would be worthy of that position, especially since you saved my life," Uraka said. "Oh right, Ida, I noticed you didn't get a single vote. I thought you wanted to be the representative and would vote for yourself," Izuku commented. "Yeah, well, wanting to be one doesn't make me fit for the position, I just did what I thought was the right thing to do." "Voting for SHIELD," Ida replied. "Did you vote for me?" Melissa asked, a little surprised. "I voted for you too," Mina added. "Me too," Izuku raised his hand while chewing. "I voted for Midoriya," Uraka said. "I voted for him too," the blonde said. The table was silent for a second until everyone started laughing. "I guess this is the winning table," Mina commented, wiping away a tear. They continued making small talk until the topic of pro heroes came up. "Ida, are you related to the hero Ingenium by any chance?" Izuku asked. "Huh? How do you know?" The blue-haired man was surprised by Izuku's question. "Well, considering their quirks are similar and their last names are the same, I thought they were related by blood," he explained. "I'm surprised you found out, Midoriya. Not that I was hiding it, but it's true. The hero Ingenium is my older brother," Ida exclaimed proudly. "It's so obvious how I didn't notice." Melissa patted her forehead. "That's why you have that rich kid accent," Uraka commented. Mina was about to say something, but a loud alarm resonated throughout UA. Announcement. Level 3 security breach. All students must evacuate immediately. The loudspeakers blared. "What's a level 3 security alert?" Ida asked a student standing next to him. "It means someone has infiltrated UA. Something like this has never happened in the 3 years I've been here. We must escape." The student ran toward the cafeteria exit. The 5 students quickly reacted and also looked for the exit, but the crush of students grew rapidly, and they ended up crushed among the large crowd that wanted to escape. Izuku was pushed to the window, where he saw the press inside the UA territory. "It's just the reporters, there's no attack, no reason to panic," he shouted, but no one heard him. "They're not paying attention to me, they're too scared to act rationally. I have to make them listen," he thought, looking everywhere for what he could do. The exit sign gave him an idea, and he put his quirks to work. He activated zero gravity and used it on himself. He floated above the others, and when he was high enough, he directed his palms backward. He released small explosions that pushed him until he reached the exit door and stood on top of the sign. He activated duplicate arms to hold onto a pipe. He grew 2 more hands and clapped with an explosion. Everyone's attention was quickly drawn to him. Swallowing his embarrassment, he did what he had to do. "Everyone listen to me. It's just the press, there's no reason to panic. We're UA students, we should act like it," he shouted to the entire crowd. When the other students realized this was true, they began to evacuate more orderly. The police arrived and evicted all the reporters, but not before issuing each of them a fine. "Midoriya, you calmed the situation and prevented more people from getting hurt, well done," Izuku praised in his typical tone of voice. "Thank you, teacher. Although it would be better if you told me while standing," he thought the last thing, seeing Izuku lying on the floor inside his sleeping bag. A few hours later, Nezu, Recovery Girl, Midnight, and 13 were gathered at the gates of UA, watching their barrier crumble to dust. "There's no way the common press could have gotten past our security system. Someone else did this, someone evil must have infiltrated our school. Was it a show of power or a declaration of war?" Nezu thought carefully about what had happened and what his next steps would be. The next day. "Today they will have rescue training.